as I sat at my wooden desk, quill in hand, staring out the narrow window of the medieval castle. I couldn't help but feel the weight of my own isolation. The world outside seemed to be moving at a frantic pace, while I remained stuck in my own private hell. My writing, once a source of solace, had become a constant reminder of my inadequacies. The blank parchment in front of me seemed to mock me, daring me to put my thoughts into words. I was a prisoner of my own fears, and the castle walls seemed to be closing in on me. It was then that I heard the sound of footsteps outside my door. I froze, my heart racing, as the door creaked open and a stranger entered. He was tall, with piercing blue eyes and jet-black hair that fell to his shoulders. He wore a cloak that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the castle, and a sword hung at his side. I felt a shiver run down my spine as he approached me. His eyes locked on mine. "You're the writer," he said, his voice low and husky. "I've heard a lot about you." I nodded, unsure of what to say, as he sat down in the chair opposite me. "My name is Eryndor," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. "I've come to the castle seeking refuge. I've heard that the lord of the castle is a just man, but I fear that I may have arrived too late." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Eryndor leaned forward, his eyes glinting with a hint of desperation. "The Lord's enemies are gathering at the gates," he said. "They will stop at nothing to claim the castle for themselves." I felt a surge of fear, but Eryndor's words also sparked something within me. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. As the days passed, Eryndor and I grew closer, our conversations flowing easily as we explored the castle and its secrets. He was a skilled warrior, and I found myself drawn to his bravery and strength. But despite his confidence, I sensed that he too was haunted by his own demons. One night, as we sat together in the great hall, he told me of his past, of the battles he had fought and the loved ones he had lost. I listened, entranced, as he spoke of his fears and his doubts. And in that moment, I knew that I was not alone. But our respite was short-lived. The enemy army arrived at the gates, their war cries echoing through the castle walls. The Lord, a just and fair man, rallied his troops, but I knew that we were outnumbered. Eryndor and I stood together, our hearts pounding in unison, as we watched the battle unfold. And then, in a moment of madness, I knew what I had to do. I grabbed Eryndor's arm. My eyes locked on his. "I have an idea," I said, my voice shaking with fear. "Follow me." We made our way to the castle's ancient library, the shelves lined with dusty tomes and forgotten knowledge. I had spent countless hours poring over the books, searching for inspiration. But now I saw them in a new light. I pulled down a volume, its pages yellowed with age, and began to read. The words were ancient, a spell of protection that had been lost for centuries. Eryndor watched, his eyes wide with wonder, as I spoke the words aloud. The air around us seemed to shimmer, and I felt a surge of power flow through me. As we emerged from the library, the battle was raging on, but something was different. The enemy army seemed to be faltering, their movements slow and uncertain. And then I saw it, a figure, tall and imposing, standing at the head of the enemy army. It was the Lord's greatest enemy, a man feared throughout the land for his cruelty and his cunning. But as I watched, he stumbled, his eyes glazing over as if in a trance. The enemy army began to retreat, their war cries fading into the distance. Eryndor turned to me, his eyes shining with admiration. "You did it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You saved the castle." I shook my head, still trying to process what had happened. "It was the words," I said. "The ancient spell. It was the power of language that saved us." Eryndor smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're a true warrior," he said. "A warrior of words." And in that moment, I knew that I had found my courage, My inner demons vanquished by the power of my own imagination.